Hi D&D fans, I'm Sparkle's Devil Monster. Welcome to my review of Dragon Magazine number 2 from 1976. Today we're going to take a look at, first of all, this gentleman. He is a dual-wielding barbarian hanging out under a forlorn leafless tree on a hillock somewhere. If you can take a close look there, you may be able to see he has a sword slung over his back and a dagger on his belt as well. So he could draw the sword with his right hand and the dagger with his left and use that as an offhand weapon for parrying. I'm not sure if back in first edition they had dual wielding or two-handed weapon fighting, or if you needed a lighter offhand weapon, but there you have it. So I really enjoyed that piece of cover art. I also was able to find an excellent villain in the second issue of Dragon Magazine. Here on page 23, we have a demon named Remorhaz. There you go. You should be able to make her out. So there she is. She's in some kind of dress. Maybe it got wet. You can kind of see her nipples poking through the dress. It's a bit risque. And she is described in this issue of Dragon Magazine as the mother of demons. So demons obey her wishes as if they were commands. And she sometimes has been heard to take men down to her dungeon and flay them for over a month before finally destroying them. And the dungeon is filled with jewels and gold and flaming bowls, as well as shadow beings. And a hero descending into the dungeon to slay her carried a sword named Blood Drinker. And there's a section in here where she destroys one of her enemies. So Remorhaz whispered, and now eerie shapes to which Neil could not put a name ran from the walls to lay tentacles upon Maylock and lift him to his feet. He was sweating, gasping for breath, trembling as with the plague. "You made a mockery of me, magician," whispered Remorhaz, and how her voice burned the eardrums with rage. "For that you shall suffer. As you have made your fellow man suffer, so now shall you. From the first to the last of my 11 hells, you shall be tortured to death, yet shall be reborn after each death, so that you may suffer even worse torments. 11 times shall you die, 11 times shall you be reborn, to begin anew until the end of time itself." So there we go. We have a powerful villain right away here in Dragon Magazine, issue number 2. As a dungeon master, I'm always looking for new elements to throw into my D&D stew and flavor the pot, whether it be that barbarian or that mother of demons. But also I'm looking for some stuff to lighten the player's burden a little bit too, such as an ally or a friendly non-player character. And I didn't really find one that spoke to me here in Dragon number 2. There is a character, Dunstan, who's returning from Dragon Magazine number 1, who I didn't really talk about much before because he wasn't that interesting then, and he's not much better now in episode 2. The only thing I kind of liked is they describe his wanderlust. He goes and robs his father's strongbox to come up with his starting gold to get starting equipment to go on his journey. So that was kind of amusing, but I'm not sure I would want that particular NPC tagging along, helping my party. So it wasn't too fond of that guy. I'm also looking for background NPCs or flavor NPCs that the players could interact with a little bit, and actually found that in their description of the monk class. So the monk class was new, and they described these monks as your typical Shaolin-style warrior monks, and they're having a martial arts tournament that the players can watch or join in. And that reminded me, of course, of the Legend of Shaolin, where the warrior monks go and rescue the Tang Dynasty prince from bandits. And there's a little illustration to go with it here on page number 4. And you can tell whoever came up with the monk class was a martial artist and a fan of Japanese martial arts like karate. So there they are, punching and spin kicking away in this arena. And he even has more little illustrations of various blocks and kicks and punches. Very kind of abstract caricatures of martial arts fighting. But, you know, that's kind of fun. I like that. It's sort of like the Mortal Kombat series of games or Street Fighter. Having a little martial arts competition could be a neat way to inject some character into your adventure. So then I'm looking for more information to flesh out the world, followed by some tips for dungeons. And back in first edition, dungeon masters were called judges, and there were actual competitions where you could play in D&D tournaments. We don't really have that much anymore. There are, of course, opportunities to play at your hobby store, Adventure League. But it's a little different. And instead of everyone going through the same module and competing and getting points, you're all going through the same module, but it's a bit less competitive. So for world building, they recommend that judges, old and new, think about how to explore the world and come across the dungeon in different ways, so that the players might find alternate entrances to these dungeons. So most people imagine ruins somewhere, maybe buried underground, and the typical main entrance is usually steps leading down into the darkness. But there could be various ways in. So instead of taking the obvious route, which will send you down maybe the corridor filled with traps, you could perhaps circle around, find a secret door, a tunnel concealed by fallen trees or brambles. Perhaps you would go down a well, or you could even dig your way in or blast your way in, make your own entrance. Or if you're being really creative, find some diplomatic or stealth route in, pretend to be emissaries, maybe hide inside a crate in a merchant's wagon that gets attacked by the goblins, and they'll take you in a crate into the middle of their dungeon. That could either be really awesome for you as a player or get you into a whole boatload of trouble right off the bat. So the various ways of getting at your dungeon. I thought that was a nice little bit of world building. And then for the dungeon itself, Dragon Magazine issue 2 says that the most fun involved in planning a new level of your dungeon is laying out friendly little traps for your players to come across. And my friends and I just had a D&D session today. We're playing Curse of Strahd. That's our current 5th edition adventure. And they ran into the explosion of Alchemist fire, which does quite a lot of damage. So for me, that was a friendly little trap. I hope they enjoyed it. So let's see here. There is a picture to go with this of a trap-laying goblin. At least I'm going to assume he's the one who laid the traps. He has here a cute little shield and short sword. Pointy little ears, looks quite sneaky. But he's not my monster of the episode here. So I found an even better monster to share with you guys today on page 21. And that is the Remorhaz. The Remorhaz. So there he is. And you can see he's got a blue belly. That's what you want to attack, because on his back, all those red spots are red hot, kind of rock-like nodules that will melt your weapons. So the barbarian there, who's poking at it with the spear end of his halberd, is doing the right thing, trying to get it right in the belly. That's the best way to take one of these suckers down. And in 5th edition, they're still around. They are very powerful foes. I believe they inhabit ice environments, so the barbarian is a bit underdressed. He might start taking fatigue damage or effects from the cold. But I suppose he'll look classy while fighting the Remorhaz in his underwear, like a superhero. All right, so next up, I'm looking for a spell and a magic item. So they do talk about the regeneration spell in issue number 2 of Dragon Magazine, and the regeneration spell is an interesting one. It's not just hit point healing, but regeneration can actually regenerate lost limbs or body parts. So sometimes as a DM, when I describe monsters taking hit point damage, I can get pretty graphic, right? The players will be lopping off limbs left and right. They might slice off an ear or a finger. But I don't really do that to the players as often. In fact, I try to avoid it. But maybe I should every once in a while let them lose the tip of their pinky finger or something, because regeneration exists in D&D, and it's entirely possible to find a helpful druid, for instance, who has access to a spell that'll let you grow that right back. As for a magic item, there is kind of a fun one in here. It's called Pipeweed of Stoning, and it does what you would expect. So the smoke, when inhaled, will cause the creature who inhales it to be turned to stone, which is probably why Bill Clinton is not a statue, because, of course, as we all know, he did not inhale. And then finally, we have just that wow factor, right? The je ne sais quoi of the issue. And that, for me, has to be this new class, the Alchemist class. And in Dragon number 1, they had a new class, the Artificer class, which I wasn't that fond of. It just seemed too much like a sci-fi, fantasy mashup that didn't do either of them right. But the Alchemist class is pretty cool, actually. And I think in 5th edition, that there are ways to accomplish much of what the Alchemist class does from 1st edition. So the Alchemist is someone who, as he levels up, can create better and better things with his alchemy. From brewing up poisons, drugs, potions, and acids, to coming up with bona fide magic items like Dust of Sneezing, flash pellets, right? You want to throw one of those down, a big flash, and you can escape. Maybe a cloud of smoke as well would help, or throw them like a flashbang grenade into a room and blind everyone before charging in. Purification powder. So if assassins are trying to poison your meals, you could purify the food and drink with your purification powder. Tanglefoot, which I think in 3rd edition it came in bags. You would throw it, and maybe grasping vines would come up and slow down your adversaries. Dust of Paralyzation, don't want to snort that. Or immunization from lycanthropy. So I'm guessing that's like a vaccine that prevents you from turning into a werewolf. Not quite sure about that one. Even up in the higher levels to things like Greek fire, basically Molotov cocktails, and gunpowder. So even way back in 1976, you could have potentially a character with a firearm. So yeah, that was a pretty good issue of Dragon Magazine. I give it an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 sparkles. So I'm going to crack open one of these babies here, and I will see you next time, hopefully for a review of Dragon number 3. Adios.